Hello there, I'm another Magento dev, and I'm, live again. Recorded live anyway, most people watch it later. I get very few people watching it live, but still like doing it. And no, I'm not a French guy, I'm not French. I do get that a lot, but I'm not French. If there are any French Magento developers out there, pop a like on the video, pop a comment in. I'm sure there's some good ones. The French are good at stuff. Don't know why I went down that rabbit hole. When there's plenty to get on with today. There's a couple of things in the chat there. I'll touch on that. Wordpress Magento sort of integrations. They're not best friends, but they play well together. The WordPress and Magento. And we can come on to that. So thanks for that content idea, Ashu. Contributor to the show always, which I love. And one thing, I added something to this because I'm going to get into the code in a bit, so stick with us. I'm going to get into the code today. It's not just going to be me talking, but I did want to I couldn't help it. In the office yesterday, the agency, we heard that Adobe, our father Adobe as Magento developers, abusive. If anything, has acquired Figma. And obviously I'm not a designer, I don't use Figma in that way, but I do use Figma as a dev, and I found it brilliant, by the way. And also I know designers that use Figma, and it's a bit of a warning, to be honest, to Adobe. I mean, to Figma users, and I'd love to know from designers. I might clip this bit actually and do it as a separate video, but I'd love to know from designers what they think of this, because as a Magento developer, our platform got bought by these people at Adobe, and I can't see how it's improved. I think obviously Magento has incrementally improved. I'm not disputing that, but what I am disputing is whether the community or the if Magento had have always stayed a community project, would it have continued on an upward trajectory? I think it would have. I mean, the majority of the debugging, the majority of the contributors, they're all community based. They don't belong to Adobe. And Adobe aren't these geniuses that come up with these great tools either. Like, obviously, what's synonymous with Adobe? Photoshop, bought it. Flash, Macromedia, bought it. Dreamweaver, bought it. They just buy shit. They're just one of these big tech giants that go around buying shit. And let's have a look at Figma. What's its closest competitor? Yeah, XD. And I'm sure there's Figma designers, and even as a developer, Figma designers that probably tried XD, moved to Figma because it's so much better, probably have got an axe to grind with XD because, to be honest, I think it's shit. And they've clearly just bought this 20 billion plus stock or what, in stock and cash or whatever, made a handful of people very rich. And if Adobe do what they do with everything, which is fuck it up, then they're gonna and again, I'm not saying they fucked up Magento. I'm just saying that they haven't added any. For me, they haven't added anything to it that I would say is, oh, thanks Adobe, that Adobe genius at work as usual. Because they're not geniuses. They're money people. That's what they are. Who remembers Flash? Do you know what I mean? They've had what have they really contributed? What have Adobe contributed to our industry from Adobe? Yeah, they've bought shit and give it a new logo, but what have they contributed? I would say, other than, as I say, they've contributed millions to shareholders. Other than that, for us, the community people, or the people who actually are at the coalface working with this tech. Which is brilliant. I mean, Figma is brilliant. I mean, for a 10-year-old company to be sold for 20 billion, it's literally, they've just bought the competition. That's what they've done, and that's what these companies do. They just buy the competition. So hopefully they won't get the shit bits of XD and the shit bits of Figma and put it together and sprinkle on a little bit of Adobe bloatware. Guarantee you'll be starting to get little links for Adobe stock images and stuff. It's not... I can't stand this. Have a Google at. I just can't stand this level of sort of monopoly I'd love to know if anybody has an opposing view, by the way, and are really chuffed that Adobe have bought Figma. But I can't see, because how well Figma would have been doing, I can't see they've bought it to improve it. Excuse me, they aren't going to put money into it. They aren't going to sort of buy something for 20 billion and then invest another 20 billion in the software to make it the better, because there's nothing to compete with it now. What they could have done is they could have put billions or they could have put money into XD to compete with Figma, and then Figma would have had to compete with XD to be better, and then the consumer or the subscriber or whatever we're known as nowadays would have benefited from that process. But now there's no competition, so no one's gonna benefit from it. Stagnate. It will stagnate. But my prediction is it will stagnate. Well, that's enough of the negativity. I don't want to be too negative because I want to get into the code. And the title of the video, it was on the thumbnail as well. And Adobe, again, this isn't an Adobe invention, but I want to talk about and look into in a bit more detail the two-step checkout, the famous two-step checkout. I love it. I love it. I love it. I was going to say I love it and I hate bits. I don't. And it's one of those things that's a real mystery to beginner devs. And those are the devs that I'm interested in. It's you guys who are just starting out. It's you guys who are just picking up the tools and going, how can I make a career for myself as an e-commerce web developer using Magento? And there we go. Right, I'm gonna just throw up my demo because I forgot to do it before I went live because I'm always prepared. Right, so what made me think of this? And because I've got to tell you the sort of I've got to give you the context. There's always context. And Magento's two-step checkout, I think is brilliant. I think it for users it's great. Obviously, for devs, it's a lot better to. Once you know these things that I'm going to tell you in this video, once you know this, it'll become easier for you to do what you want to do with it. That's the best way to put it, because there isn't a sort of a magic sort of formula I can give you that this is how you do everything in this checkout system. But what I can do is I can break it down and I can show you how it works. I can show you where to look for things as usual, and I can tell you what it is. And what it is it's basically a data structure using layout XML that feeds into Knockout.js, essentially. Knockout.js components is probably the best way to put it. And those components help hydrate or populate HTML files on the front end. So essentially it loads outside of the Magento, the traditional Magento template structure, and you sort of see that when you're using it on the front end. And just for people who don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm sure you all do, and I bet I ain't got Elasticsearch running. Yes, I have. That's good. This is what we're talking about. So the way this loads in, obviously, it could be better. We could customize it better. And this is running slow because I'm streaming and there's no logo because I've been messing about. But all of these components here, all of these bits and bobs, look, they're all knockout templates with if statements. And for those of you who have looked into the checkout, or even the cart to an extent as well, and looked into it, you probably thought, Jesus, what have they written here? Because it's monstrous, right? The file's what controlled it, or the main file, checkout cart index, or whatever it's called. I'm going to get to it in a second. I'm just going to open this because I'm going to talk about something on here in a sec. Because this is knockout as well. And this is a good place to start to learn the checkout. And the reason I'll get onto it, the file's smaller and it's better. So essentially, where are we in Magento? Where are we in Magento? Well, we're in Magento folder, and we're in module. You guessed it, because you're clever people. Magento module checkout, and then you're in the view folder because we're concentrating on the front end aspects. And we're in here really. We're in checkout index, and now look at this. This is a monstrous file. Look, It's massive, and essentially, it's just your data. It's just data structures, and the whole thing is in here as well. And the way you can sort of see that is, the best way to sort of have a look at this is to close stuff. So in your IDE, just sort of shut some of these nodes. So we've got checkout, and that's everything, right? You can see I've shut checkout, and everything's in there, right? And then we've got one page which is like the main template that's used, and I can show you that in a sec. Messages, which are at the top, authentication, errors, and then we start getting into the components. So then we start getting into, I'll go to the checkout and I'll come back to this. And then we start getting to like the progress bar at the top, this bit, and then we get into the shipping section, and then we get into the billing section, which comes after this step, and then we see the sidebar and stuff, and I'm going to show you through it now. And one thing you'll notice about this, if you're sort of opening a version up, I suggest you open a version up now and have a look, or sort of play along with us. So you've got the progress bar here, we'll close all these. Estimation, which is sort of the thing, right, steps, here we go. So the first step here, we've got shipping address. I'm going to close this one. Shipping, billing, right? So those two are obviously key to it. Sidebar, okay? And that, just about, if you look at that, that looks now a lot more readable and simpler. And obviously you could shut some of these as well. But as I said, when you first start looking for something in this, I find it overwhelming. I come back to it, and the main reason is I find it overwhelming because I know how you extend this, and you extend this by replicating a lot of these sort of items and the XSI actual layouts, and I'm going to show you how these interact with Knockout in a minute. But so let's dial it back a little bit and give it some sort of real world context, so I can talk through a bit of a process of how you might want to edit this. So first of all, I'll say off the bat, if you can convince your client, your designer, whoever's helping you build your Magento site, that the checkout and the cart don't need changing, which is sometimes easier than others, sometimes an easier thing, sometimes difficult, then you might just then convince them that the structure's fine, and you just might want to make a few little tweaks to make it better for your customers. And I had a really interesting take on the cart from a client during the week, which sort of made me think, I could do a little stream on this. And they basically wanted to change the wording of this area here. Yeah, that's right. Sorry, I didn't even check the chat, and I've got some real good stuff in here. Like Gulam M has said, buy the competition and make it shitter. That's what Adobe do. That's what they all do, innit? What do you mean by being outside of Magento? Being outside of Magento? Oh, Mohammed Adel, I'm not sure. I've rambled on, and I ain't seen that one come in. I apologise. So if you want to clarify on that, I'll make sure. It's on my other screen, and I get carried away. So I will get better at this, I promise. By outside, I won't dwell on that. I'll come back to it. But right, what I mean by it's outside of Magento, I think I sort of I might have misspoke. What I meant was it's predominantly generated. The majority of the page is generated by Knockout rather than PHTML files. The PHTML files are kind of the attachment that it hits. It's hard to imagine. Almost like the DOM element is in the PHTML file. And then there's no other, like your shipping, billing, all the code is in HTML files, all of the actual code that you see on the checkout. I think that's what we were referring to. So I hope I've clarified myself there. But let's have a look at the cart, because the cart is like a mini version of the checkout, and that is in here. And I know I'm in core files. Right? So the cart is in here, right? And if I just search for something, and this is going to come subtitle. Right, so I got asked, it was a real benign question, real one of them ones that you think's real simple at first, and you think, oh, it's a 2-minute job. Once you know what I'm going to tell you now, it will be a 2-minute job. But what they said was, we want to change the word subtotal there so it's clearer for our customers. They wanted to say subtotal with including tax or something like that, you know. So it was based on their tax settings, they wanted to say that it was including tax, right? So immediately, where's your mind going as a Magento dev? You're thinking language files, I18 files. Let's change the word subtotal. But immediately, even on this page, you can see the problem with that solution. You change the word subtotal in your I18 file, and it's going to change every time subtotal comes up, right? Can't do that, right? So then the next thing is, well, let's have a look at where this little piece of text actually gets generated from. And if you do a search in vendor folder, which you know I'm a fan of, and you search for total sub, a few of them come up. And I'm going to look at the one in, I mean, you could pick either of these, and notice they're in module tax, by the way. But they turn up in HTML files, right? So I think I'm just going to have cart totals. I'm going to open this one. I think it's this one. Right, so subtotals, you can see here, here's the HTML file with a data band and a translatable data band of title, right? So, and again, I wouldn't do this because it ain't the rightest way. And you know, we talk about there's right ways to do things and there ain't wrong ways to do things, because if it works, right? But there are right ways and then there just are righter ways, right? And the wrong way to do this would be to go, right, well, tell you what, it'd work though. I'll get rid of the data band and I'll just change it to, right, to something else. That'd probably work, right? But because I've got rid of the data band, if I keep the data band, it'll overwrite what's in there. So you don't want to do that anyway if you're doing this. But I just want to make sure it's the right one, right? But don't feel right, does it? When you're looking at this, because otherwise you'd come to it, and if that was the right thing to do, that'd be there like that, wouldn't it, essentially? And you'd be like, all right, well, I'll just change that in there. It's only one file and it only appears in one place, the cart, you know. So what harm can I be doing? Well, it's not the rightest way to do it. So if I just back up, when I looked at this, I thought, well, the data's got to be coming from somewhere, right? Because this is a data band, and from what you know about Knockout, right, it's passing the data in from somewhere, some sort of config. So you could then go back another step, and I've covered this in one of my Knockout tutorials, is where is it likely that that data is coming from? And it's only through my experience that I know where it's coming from. But you could be forgiven for thinking that it's in a JavaScript file, it's in a Knockout file that is helping hydrate this with data, because you can do that. So where would you look next then if you're going up the chain, right? So you could go into the Knockout files. So you could go into, like, you could have a quick skeg in here at what might be providing, you know, the shopping cart or the sidebar, to see what might be providing it with subtotal. But if you have a look in these, if you spell it right, they come up blank, right? So it's not been the information. This one is, by the way, the information is not being given to the HTML template by a JS file. So you can rule that out as well. So what it's actually doing is it's from here. Look, it's from the data structures. And obviously, if you're experienced devs watching this, or even, like, you know, you're non-beginners and or you've been in this section, you might think, well, Adam, that's obvious, right? That's obvious. Why are you even saying that? Well, there is an argument to say, look, there is a JavaScript file here, JS view summary, subtotal. No, what am I doing here? JS view summary subtotal. So you could, in terms of your structure, look, it's output into the template. There's no reason why you might want, obviously it's working out the totals and that, there's a bit of scripting there to do it, but there's no reason why you won't look in there to see if you could find that there's just you know, a get title or something like that being output that's then being picked up. But it isn't, essentially. So where you want to be looking is in here, and you'll notice that in these config arrays here, there is a title, I'm going to call it a node, right, with a translate true. Now this is all becoming a bit clearer now, isn't it? The scales are falling from our eyes because it's a translatable variable and we've got translate true. And you can see other things in here that the checkout is using, shipping, discount. You can see other things, and they're all in sort of the same area in block totals. So it's in here essentially. So the word subtotal, and I'm not sure what cache date I've got my site in, so forgive me if this just doesn't work. Again, I should prepare better, like I used to be told at school and never listened. I'm just going to flush the old cache. If it don't work, you're going to have to take my word for it. And I know I'm editing a core file. I'm going to get onto how you do it in a minute. There you go. So it's in there essentially. So look at that. I've changed it in my data structure, and I haven't, changed it there. And it's binding the title from here, what I changed, into my knockout, which that's decent, isn't it? That's good. Now, with my JavaScript framework head on, my JavaScript framework head is saying, keep your files as small as possible, keep them modular. Now, that flies in the face. This file flies in the face of that concept. It's fucking massive, right? And it's confusing as well. And it's massive not in length, numbers down the left hand side here. It's massive in its nesting. This nesting, like, it would keep me awake at night. It's it's heavy, isn't it? Right? Whereas, would it be so bad if this was nice and little modular? And then for the amount of information you're putting into this, and I mean and when I say amount, it's literally that in this file, right? Would it be mental to suggest that you've got a get title function in there? Now, better people than me, as I always say, better people than me thought of this. I'm just merely commenting with my opinion. But it basically, the reason why I've got an opinion on it is because the next bit, when you come to the next bit, which is how do you extend that? Because obviously you can't do what I've just done there. That's a big no-no. Get your hand slapped, right? And it won't work because you deploy it and your change would go, it'd get overwritten. So how do you extend it? Right. Well, as always, there's a couple of ways to extend it. You can either write a module, check out, and point your references towards it in a view folder. But I'm going to go out, this might be controversial. I'm going to say, at my rule, it is, because this is front end only, front end changes like text and aesthetic changes, informational changes. If you was changing it via the language file, you'd do it in your theme. I'm saying you do this in your theme all day. And that way, it does make it easier to maintain, I think, because if this gets left in a module, say you're writing more structural stuff for your checkout, you're adding more programmatical stuff, for your checkout, like, I don't know, you write a payment gateway or something mental like that, that's going to be up in your code folder. I don't think you want your layout files in that, and then why would you create a full module just to have layout files in? I've never understood that. I've seen it before. I've gone into sites where I'm building and thought, they've created a full module here for just a layout file, a layout change. Layout changes, for me, do it in your design folder, in here. Right, so how do I accomplish these changes? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to identify what module folder it's in, and we've done this a million times on this channel, and it's obvious. They're always analogous to the module hyphen folder. So I'm going to go module checkout, even though I'm editing the cart, right? So module checkout. In this occasion, I'm editing the cart. I'm gonna jump into checkout in a minute because these two concepts tie together. Just one's more complicated than the other. And the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna bring up the one that I prepared earlier, but I'm not gonna show you it. I'm gonna pretend I'm just real slick and I can just do it off the top of my head. But I can't. And then I'm gonna create because I'm talking as well. It's harder than it looks. This, trust me. I'm going to create a layout folder, and then in the layout folder I'm going to create, this is where I like working in a theme because it's nice and simple. And then I'm just going to replicate checkout cart index XML, right? I'm going to end up with with checkout cart index, which is the same as checkout cart index. I just want to make sure that I wrote it right because I sometimes make silly spelling mistakes and make myself look daft. Checkout cart index. Yeah. Let me just check. I haven't got this. I'm just gonna put it in. I'll put it in developer mode in a minute. It should refresh. It should be alright. Right. I don't know who I was talking to then. It sounded like I was actually talking to someone else. Right. But now the difficult thing is we've got to replicate this file structure to an extent. So what do we normally do, right? Well, we get things like this, don't we? We grab. Let's start building our file, right? And I would suggest sometimes, like on the smaller files, you can just copy everything in and remove what you don't need. I've tried it both ways with these types of files, but because they're so massive, that for me becomes a bit problematic. Magento's error reporting is quite good on it though. It does tell you if you knacker up a end tag or something like that in this file. So I always start with, and I can get rid of this. And I always say as well, I know I've copied this from exactly the same file, but if you're copying it from somewhere else or you're doing it off the top of your head, just be careful of this. Because the layout, because the cart currently is set to one column, if you set the layout to something else, it's not gonna work. So you either need it the same as what it is now, or just don't have that, right? But I think we're safe to use it the same as it is now. And then within the body, where do you start from, right? Do you start from content? Do you start from this container, this container? Like, which container is the right container? Which block is the right block? And for editing this part, we can jump into this block straight away. We can jump straight into this block, cart totals, right? So we can skip out a few. So that does remove some of the complexity, and you might, oh no, it's not that. And it is a block as well, so I've skipped out all the containers, and that's the shipping one. See what I mean? It's fiddly in it, and that ends there. Cart totals. There it is. It's this guy here. Cart block. So I'm here, right? Before I've even written anything else. And then, well, we just sort of follow it in. And we need block totals. We need we need block totals, and then we skip a bit. So I'm gonna go for these next, right? So I'm gonna bob these. I'm gonna close that before I forget. Reference block. And by the way, I'm not looking at the chat for now. It's not on my screen, so I'll come back to some bits in a minute, depending on how we get on. But I am in code mode at the minute. I'm going to concentrate. Item. So I'm just being careful about where things end. So obviously, arguments are part of argument. Argument is part of arguments. Apologies, I meant. And this is my method, right? You see I made a mistake there, is I do it piece by piece. I would rather do that than copy and paste everything. I would rather build it up, and now I know I've got this gap to work with. So I'm in block totals now. And then the next one that I'm going to go grab is, I'm not going to worry about this, because that starts and ends there. I'm not changing anything in these template files. I'm not going to worry about this config here. But the next one I'm going to grab is I'm going to grab the children. And right, I'm going to grab that there, and then I'm going to bang the next one in, and I'm going to finish it off. This is workmanship, my friends. This is what we need to do. You need to take your time. and you need to understand what you're putting where. Now, we're in a situation now where it's starting to become a little bit more reasonable. We're getting a little bit closer look to what we want to change to maybe grab this now. And I can see that starts and ends there, that starts and ends there. Right, and I'm going to grab this guy. But I'm not going to use it all. No, 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 we're going to keep it nice and clean. Just tidy this up. Right, so I don't need this. I literally just need the config variables. And notice some of these similarities. Did I just delete? I said I couldn't. Hang on, can't remember. Yeah, get rid of that. Right, so the wording here now. I've done another tutorial on the channel about knockout, and I talked about how config gets passed from a front end template to a back template, and config it uses this. We're using the same terminology, which is useful. And we don't need this as well. So because the assignment was just change the wording, just change that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change it to something completely different. Right, now I've saved that, and I'm just going to, I can't remember if I'm in production mode or not. So I'm just going to flush cache. Hopefully my template will override the wording here. Moment of truth. And on a live stream I can't get Richie and Eddie in there to cover, and then here we go, it's worked, look. So that's it. That's it, right? So that's how these things tie together, and that's, in my opinion, and my method of and it's tidy now, isn't it? Like, if you want to start making more changes to this, I think it's going to get bigger, but it's tidy. Now, obviously, the title of this video is checkout, and I'm concentrating on the cart, and it might seem like a bit of a cop-out, but this wording is in the checkout as well, right? Subtotal is in the checkout as well, so obviously for consistency, you want it also in there. So let's jump back into the Mahusive index. Now, it ain't as easy now as just, and you'd think, let's just copy and paste this into checkout index. And I'm afraid not going to happen, mate. Not going to happen. You're not going to be able to do it. It is more buried. It's more buried in it's really well buried in checkout index, and I'll show you where it is, and that in the one. So if I want to do the same change, I'm going to have to do it again, and that's probably not going to be possible in the time I've got left on my live stream. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in what I've made earlier, and I'm going to talk you through it. So let me just, and this is a file that I use often in a checkout because it helps me with logos and things like that. But you're gonna see behind the curtain here. But I'm just gonna get rid of some of this. Right, so we're starting from the block checkout root in this one, because there's no other blocks, and then look how deep it goes, super deep. So that'd change it, and also in this project I changed the wording of that as well. And essentially that had to be done again. So like I said at the beginning, when you're looking at it going, oh yeah, change the wording, simple change. But it's at least half an hour getting your head around it, unless you've done it before and you just can copy and paste it in like I just have. But unless you've done it before, by the way that these data structures are inherent from Magento, are given to you by Magento, it's not straightforward. So I hope that's been useful. And I'm just gonna have a quick check in the old chatteroo here. Share your emails. I can't share my email, can I? Obviously. Magento 2, the more I feel some sort of fetish into XML files from the core team. I sort of agree. The more you work with it, the more you feel some sort of fetish into it. I think I get what you mean there. I think I get what you mean. It's like it feels like ours, doesn't it? As Magento devs, it's ours. It's like our kid, innit? You accept it with all its I was gonna say deformities, but that's probably a harsh word. 10p mil. Yeah, no, I've put a 10p mil in there before. No one ever emails it. I don't know whether it's not working. I'll put a 10p mil in at the end of this, and I'll keep it on. I'll put it in the comments of this video. I ain't doing it right now, but I'll put it in the I promise you. Right, let's talk about WordPress quickly, because I've got like 10 minutes left. I'm on my lunch. This is why I do it. I do it on my lunch. Let's talk about WordPress. Now, WordPress, I think you configuring WordPress. Let me let you into a secret if you don't already know it. And anyone could tell me in the chat, what is the best WordPress integration? It begins with a fish and it ends with a pig. Now, I've done this in my life so many different ways. Magento and WordPress integrations, particularly before the page builder was introduced into Magento 2. How else was you going to get the types of home pages that I was producing, which were like cutting edge? Well, the only way to do it really was to integrate a WordPress and build a component based, using ACF, but component based editor for people. And one of the best ways I found to do it was to integrate WordPress via the API of WordPress and bring it into Magento. I also tried just hosting WordPress in the pub folder, and there was a way in the olden days, this is one for the kids there was one in the olden days where you was able to integrate the WP head, or basically the entry point to WordPress, in Magento's index.php in the pub folder, and then you was able to use WordPress core in Magento. And it was dodgy, don't get me wrong, it was dodgy, and that died, I think, when Magento upgrades started touching or deleting or moving about the actual index.php, because for a while back in 2.0, 2.1 days, well, first of all, none of us dare upgrade Magento 2, but back in the Magento 1 days you could definitely do it. Like there was no composer upgrades really that of note. Everything was sort of done through old FTP. Again, one for the kids, if you know you know. And the way that it used to work was, it used to sort of stay there and now and again, and it was a hack, it was horrible. Right, well, this guy, Fishpig, has got some great extensions, and the WordPress integration is free to use, to integrate a WordPress, and really, really good. And the way I would add, I haven't got one of these installed on a site that I can actually show you, because I don't feel comfortable showing a client site on a live stream. But the way I would integrate it is have your WordPress as external to your Magento. So don't put it in the pub folder. I just don't like the idea of it. And it's not because I think WordPress is inherently insecure, and it's not because I feel uncomfortable in that way. It's because you never know what Magento's going to do in further future upgrades with the pub folder. It could just delete it. It could just say, nah, you're not doing that anymore. So if you have it in another place, solve this out. How can I move custom login to a location behind the cart button and make it drop down type? And I tell you what, that's niche, that mate. That's a niche question. You have a look. I've done a video actually. I've done a video on how to edit the customer in the back end and how that works with the front end. And I put a custom account field in there with to simulate maybe a account reference or something that might work with an ERP software. You'd be able to add customer picture field. You'd be able to add a field and it'd be a big job, but you'd be able to do that. Have a look at that video and see where you get to on it. Have a search for it. Don't Google it, because that word's embargoed on my channel. But you could use a search engine. Gosh, these XMLs go like, I know, but there are XMLs Are they not? You've seen all my videos. Well, what can I say? I could have a look, but that's a niche. That's a niche one, Ashu. But not found it. Do you know what? I'll put a link to that in the description as well. I'm really glad you're watching all of it. Honestly, I'm chuffed to bits. I'm chuffed to bits that people are watching it. But yeah, they are a hellish set of XMLs, are they not? But anyway, going back to this WordPress thing, yeah, my advice would be install it. It's a piece of piss. Composer, get it in there, and then have your blog as an external blog somewhere else. And then the part of the integration is you can choose whether you want an internal blog. I'm just wondering if it's in documentation. It uses XML as well. It's in document. You know, if I could get some screenshots, it's ace though. And then you can choose for external. You put in your database details, save it, and then tell it what file path you want. You know, /blog, /news, whatever. Where can I solve this doubt of mine? I don't know, mate. I don't know. Practice makes perfect is another thing that I'll say. Yeah, it's just to get basically set it up as external. That's my advice. Get this in there if you want to integrate your WordPress. Just for blogs, by the way. If you want to go a bit further than that, you have to get the paid version because you might want to start using ACF fields and things like that. But the actual file structure of it is really it's very extendable within your theme, and it looks like WordPress as well. You know, you got like your post, your list, your sidebar. It's all in PHTML, obviously because it's in Magento. But the code, and I can sort of show you some code, because I can copy it from this and I can paste it into my one that I'm showing you. Let's have a look. We've got like 5 minutes left. Let's have a look. Thanks for staying to the end, people who have though. Thanks for watching. It's been ace. I love doing these. And then you'd do. No, you wouldn't. I tell you what. I'll show you what you do. Right. So you'd extend it. Fishpig WordPress would be the like folder, and then you can just like use all the. Let's be careful, Adam. Right, and then you can use any of the sort of. Template files which you'll get in your vendor folder. You just have to check them out, and then you're just using your normal layout for layout and your normal templates for templates. And let me just right. So here's some code. So you can see this is just getting posts. Like it's not alien. It's not too alien, you know, for even WordPress developers. Get your favorite WordPress dev to come in and do it, and that's your list page. And then you have your view page, which is your post page. It's called viewing it, but that like resonates a little bit. You can edit your comments. You can basically edit anything that you can edit in your WordPress theme within Magento's template system. So you don't have to do your theming because you install their placeholder theme. Fishpig have a placeholder theme that you install in your WordPress, so you don't have to worry about it. And you're just basically using your WordPress for the back end. And also it adds a handy link into your Magento admin where it links to your login for WordPress, so your client can click on that and go to your WordPress just to edit the content and what have you. But you don't have to work in there. You can still work in Magento, which is it's really good. It's really good anyway. Check it out. I'm sure you will. You're clever enough to figure it out without me spoon feeding you. So that's it for this one, I think. And yeah, Figma users, watch out. Watch out is all I'll say. That's the lesson learned from this. Adobe's bloatware is coming your way soon in a big fat download, and I feel for you. And it is how the world works now, unfortunately. But thank you for watching, everyone. Thank you for dropping it out. Thank you for commenting, interacting with the video. I'll try and do one of these a week. Friday seems like a good day for me, and I've had quite a few views, so Friday looks good for me. And yeah, there's more videos coming soon, and check out my Vue.js videos. I'm doing some Vue storefront stuff, which is sort of a little bit outside of Magento, but still needs a Magento dev to do, in my opinion. You can't just run with it. You've got to be a Magento dev to get the best out of Vue storefront and headless Magento 2. And it's great, by the way. Now they've re-released it and actually sorted it out. And yeah, add a like to the video, and I will. Yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one. Have a good Friday. Have a good weekend.